Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Wednesday, December the 15th, 2021. I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I am here to go over a tremendous NBA 11-game main slate for this evening. It is going to be a good one. We've got to obviously shift around and bounce around all of these COVID protocol people that are sitting. But we'll get there. We're going to work through it. We'll follow the news for you, and we'll make sure that we put some lineups out that are the most conducive to taking down some big tournaments. So appreciate you spending your time with me here to listen into some of our NBA action. We've got, again, a busy 11-game NBA schedule. So we're not going to spend a lot of time going over much prior to we want to dive in. I will say this though, if you haven't checked it out yet, we have our 12 days of Christmas special going on as we count down to a wonderful Christmas Day and also the awesome 5-game massive NBA slate that day that has some incredible contests. We have, by the way, really what I think, our Black Friday deals were tremendous, but this one particular deal, if you're looking and following basketball up through Christmas, it's the Christmas 12-day pass for $12. And we're going to offer that all the way from now until Christmas Day. And then that is going to go away. So take advantage of that. If you want to join for the rest of the NFL season, that's only $50. Similar to that $1 a day plan that we've done in the past. And basketball, if you want to jump in for the remainder of the NBA season, that is only $175. So those are our Christmas specials. Big shout out to John Weehausen. He did a lot of this background work to get this Christmas special completed and ready and up. And also Brett Trimble, who got all of our back office stuff done with offering this on our website. So really appreciate everybody's hard work. Our team has really been stepping up as it's been super busy, with this holiday time. So appreciate that. We'd love to have you join us. If you just want to sign up for anything Coach Talk wise, just go to dfscoachtalk.com. You'll have all of your options there. As we begin this, if you're watching on Twitter, no, you're not watching on Twitter, you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, quick thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, give us a little comment at the bottom if you can, and also hit that little alarm button, that bell up in the corner there. That will give you an indication of when we are posting. It'll give you an alert. You'll know when we're posting any of our podcasts. And we do 7-day-a-week podcast in front of the paywall. So you're going to catch us every day NBA-wise. And then 3 really great NFL podcasts through the week from Andrew Hansen, Josh Davis, and Omaha Joe Stanton. So you want to catch those as well. Really appreciate everybody that's been getting involved. We've had a lot more views on YouTube, a lot of people listening to our audio podcasts as well. You can catch us anywhere podcasts are heard: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher. I could go on and on. Anywhere that you go there to listen, we have a contest, and it's the 15th, so we're about halfway through the month, and we draw at the end of each month. Anybody that gives us 5 stars in a comment on any of those podcast spots where we land, you get in a drawing for a 1-week full access membership to Coach Talk. So take advantage of that as well. All right, I appreciate it. Here we go. We've got 11 games, no breaks. We're going to get through it with giving everybody a good indication of how to start building these lineups. And again, just a real quick one. If you really want to take this serious and build it, you got to focus in on contest selection and bankroll management. We really coach that here at Coach Talk. So if you want to take that to another level, come and join us. And then with all this COVID protocol, injury, rest, everything going on, you have to follow it close throughout the day and even in the late swap in the evening. Let us do the majority of that work for you. We're doing it on it constantly, our whole team. If you can jump in our Discord, follow along with us as all that news breaks, and we're going to make shifts and change to give our members the best chance to take it down. And remember, we're very unique here at Coach Talk. No one offers exactly what we do as far as what we provide. We provide a unique coach's clipboard, which is 5 guys that are highlighted, and then a bunch of other players to choose the rest of your lineup. We also give out full cash and GPP line on Yahoo and on FanDuel. So very unique, but it's really been a great mixture for helping our members win. And that's what it's all about. All right, no further delay. Here we go. 7 o'clock, Houston and Cleveland. Cleveland minus 8.5, 220.5 total. 106 implied for Houston, 114.5 for the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are playing fantastic basketball, by the way. Houston comes in at 9-18. They certainly have improved. Cleveland, a really impressive 17-12. Injuries, big news here that we need to know is questionable on Christian Wood. We already know that Gordon, Green, House, Porter, and Wall are all out. So that's going to change this game tremendously. It also creates a situation, considering Cleveland has 0 injuries, which is amazing at this point of the season. It really creates the possibility of a blowout. So I know it's only 8.5, but I'm a little concerned about this game. I think, I think Cleveland, the way they're rolling, this could be a big problem. Statistically speaking, Houston is the fastest paced team in the NBA. So it is a great pace up game for Cleveland as well. Cleveland's 19th, so, not the best for Houston in that matchup. Defensive efficiency, Houston 24th, Cleveland 3rd. So again, you've got a lot pointing to Cleveland here, and that's where we have to be a little bit wary. I think Armoni Brooks is a great play. He's 5'5". Somebody's got to score the ball. If Christian Wood sits on top of everything else, then Armoni Brooks is a huge play. And also our thumbnail today, Garrison Matthews. He's only 4'7", and he's going to probably play 40, 42 minutes and is a great value. He's proven he can score the ball and do a couple other things as well. So I think he's, really in consideration. After that, DJ Augustine, Tice, Tate, those guys are all possible. I prefer Brooks and Matthews a little bit more. But Şengün is also going to be a really popular pick if Wood sits. So this could be a big game right out of the chute. The 220.5 total is decent, and it makes sense. On the Cleveland side, if the game does stay within what Vegas is saying, this 8.5 point spread, you've got Garland, who's phenomenal at 7'9", could be a great play. You got some cheap options in Lauri Markkanen at 5'1", which I think really has some possibilities. Then the two bigs, you've got Mobley at 6'9" and Allen at 8'3" would be the other two considerations for me. And either one is playable, or both. They're just both playing good ball. A little expensive to go both ways, but I think they're both in play. All right, another 7 o'clock game. Atlanta Hawks, Orlando Magic. Atlanta favored by 8. A nice big 224 total. 116 implied for Atlanta. 108 for Orlando. Atlanta comes in at 13-14. Orlando at 5-23. Not great. Okongwu is questionable for Atlanta, so he may get a little backup center, which he hasn't been playing much. So he may get some backup center to Capella. We know that Bogdanovich and Hunter remain out. For Orlando, it's a big group again. Michael Carter-Williams, Fultz, Isaac, Moore, and Suggs remain out. So they have been banged up for quite some time. Atlanta is 18th in the league in pace, which is surprising. They played faster last year. Orlando's 9th, so that's a good pace-up game for Atlanta. Defensively, though, both of these teams are bad, so it gives us some good DFS promise. 25th and 29th defensively in the league. So that opens it up. Trae Young's super expensive at 10-7. Could be a slate breaker kind of game for him, though. You guys know, and gals, that I love Cole Anthony, too, and the way he plays. He's super in play for me at 8-4. So, I mean, yes, Trae Young has a higher ceiling than Cole Anthony, but, for the $2,300 you're saving in salary, I think Cole's a great play today. Kevin Huerter at 5-4 has been steady. And then, of course, Collins and Capella, you can consider it 7, 6, and 8, both in a pace-up situation. So either one of them could get there. Other considerations for Orlando, if you want to go cheaper, you can look at Franz Wagner at 6-3. A little too high for me, but he has put up a lot of double-digit, solid 5, 6, 7x games throughout the way. Wendell Carter's up to 7-5 now. He was a great play at 5-8 and such that he was for quite some time, but he's now firmly in that mid-tier pricing, and it creates a little bit of a second thought before you really put him in there. Mo Bamba at 6-4 is also a reasonable play. Capella's tough, but, Bamba's going to get his anyway. But definitely need exposure. Both of these first games. I mean, it's unusual that you get two totals over 220 early on in the slate like this, but they both are good games. Now we get some normal early slate type situations here based on the Vegas lines. Miami and Philadelphia. Philly by 6, only 208.5 total, 101.25 implied for Miami, and 107.25 for the Philadelphia 76ers. Miami comes in at 16-12, Philadelphia at 15-13. Huge amounts of injuries here. First of all, Tyler Hero, questionable. And then here's the guys that are out. Bam, Jimmy Butler, Martin, Morris, and Oladipo. So really, those 6 guys, they could win a lot of games with just those 6 guys that are out. Things aren't much prettier for Philly. Seth Curry and Joel Embiid, questionable. So monster news. Riller, Simmons, and Springer remain out. So this game becomes almost impossible to really break down until we get the Hero and Embiid and Curry news, because those are 3 key players, 3 guys that get solid usage. So we got to follow this one. As far as pace goes, it's just a tenaciously awful game, 27th and 29th in pace. So these are 2 half-court teams that are going to focus on working the ball and not a lot of extra possessions, not a lot of extra DFS points. Fun game to watch, but not a great game to load up on defense. It's the first night of a back-to-back for Philly, so that's why you're probably looking at questionable tags on some of the guys like Embiid. They'll a lot of times choose one of the 2 games to have them sit. So that news is important. Miami's also 8th in the league in defensive efficiency, which, doesn't bode well for Philly. Philly is 20th. So you got an island game for Miami. Philly, looking to rest some guys on the first night of a back-to-back. So with the Vegas total, with that in consideration and some of the good D, I do think you have to look at some of the value here, because the bottom line is, if let's just say all these guys are sitting, Lowry at 8-1 now has to be the scorer, the playmaker, the leader. So he's playable. You can consider cheaper Gabe Vincent at 4-5 or Duncan Robinson at 4-4, or Dwayne Dedman at 5-1. They're all super cheap, and they're all going to be important to this rotation if all of those guys sit out. So good value here. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of value and tons more that's going to open up. So really, let's face it, in this COVID world now of protocols with everybody sitting out, it really does come down to who builds the best stars and scrubs lineup every night, because there's really no necessity to go with a medium build. You can get a good 3 superstars in your lineup because you got 4 or 5 guys that are, 4,000 or whatever, that you are going to play 30, 35, 40 minutes. And it just makes for a pretty easy strategy. However, got to pick the right guys. It does no good to pick stars and scrubs if you're picking the wrong ones. On the Philly side, if Embiid does sit, Tobias Harris dives up in usage and becomes a terrific play at 7-4. Tyrese Maxey at 6-1 can also be considered. And, Thibel's very cheap at 3-1, and he's going to get you stocks. There's no doubt about it. But can he hit some threes to help, build that up? I think that, that potential's there. It's risky, definitely a GPP play, but you can consider it. All right, we move to a 7:30 game. It's the LA Lakers and Dallas Mavericks. Lakers are favored by 1 on the road in Dallas, 215 total, 108 implied for the Lakers, 107 for the Dallas Mavericks. Both teams just hovering around 500. Lakers are 15-13. Dallas is 14-13. LeBron James, probable. Anthony Davis is the big question mark. He missed the last game. Ariza, Horton Tucker, Howard, Monk, and Nunn are all out. So a little light on the rotation for the Lakers with all those guys out. For Dallas, Sterling Brown, questionable. Cauley Stein and some dude by the name of Luka Doncic out. So it does affect this game big time. Lakers are second in the league in pace, and Dallas is 30th. So you've got a massive pace up game for the Mavericks and can't have a worse pace down game for the Lakers. Defensive efficiency, the Lakers are up to 10th, which is very respectable. Dallas in the middle of the pack at 14. So, slower game for the Lakers. Dallas gets a little bit of a bump here for sure on pace, but both teams can defend. And then you've got, we need to see who's in and out for the Lakers for sure. But, on the Dallas side, I'll start there. I think Brunson, even at 6'7", with this pace up and our man Luka out, I think is squarely in play. Porzingis is super pricey and depends on if Davis plays or not, really, for me, on whether Porzingis is in. I think, he has a better chance to get to his number, even though he's 8'6", if Davis sits. After that, really not interested in all the other, I'll call them scaboogie, because they're just not good. I mean, God bless them. I hope they do it. But Bullock, Finney-Smith, Powell, Hardaway, Kleba, Sterling Brown, Moses Brown, Josh Green. Ugh, yuck. Sorry. Just a little Mavericks gut punch here. We need to make some moves. Anyway, I regress. Here we go. Lakers. Playing the slowest team in the league is not going to help. Russell Westbrook at 10-6. He's a bit about as inconsistent as you can get. And I know he has monster ceilings. Maybe he gets it here. But, man, playing him is like playing roulette. You just really are really spinning the wheel. Certainly can always throw him up there in a GPP in case he has one of his triple-double crazy games. But I'm not going to spend up for him at 10-6 on an 11-game slate. After that, we'll see who's in and out. LeBron at 11-1 is a different story. If Davis sits, this considering being a fairly close game, I think LeBron is a fantastic pay-up option here at that number. But if Davis plays, then you've got him at 10-4 in there as well, and it becomes very difficult. This isn't going to, again, this is a huge pace-down game for them. If Westbrook, James, and Davis are in, I'm probably going to pass. But we'll get that news as the day goes on. All right. We have the 8 o'clock group now, which are two games. The first one is the New Orleans Pelicans, Oklahoma City Thunder. Pelicans are favored by 2. It's only a 210.5 total, 106.25 for the Pelicans, 104.25 for the Oklahoma City Thunder. As far as records coming into this game, you've got the Pelicans at 8-21, Thunder at 8-18. So again, one of these NBA draft day type slotting games to see who's going to be further down the list. Injuries, we've got Holmes, Hommes, for the Pelicans. I know pretty much every player in the league. Dalton Holmes is not one of the guys I'm real familiar with. But he's out, so it doesn't matter. Luzada's out, and my brother Cheeseburgers Williamson still out. Lou Dort is out for the Thunder, though. So Brandon Ingram is throwing a luncheon party today in extreme excitement that he gets to play against the Thunder and does not get to be put into the torture chamber. So let's look at couple things here statistically. Pelicans 20th in pace, Oklahoma City 15th. Defense stinks. Pelicans 28, Thunder 22. So it's an attackable game. Again, Ingram immediately becomes a play that I have not played often recently because their games are inconsistent, and he's been inconsistent. And he's a super expensive 9-2. I don't think he'll get as much ownership as you think at that price. If he was in the 8s, he's been 8-8 and in that neighborhood, and he gets a decent amount of ownership. But once you jump over that 9 spot, you're looking at serious pay up. But I like him here. I think he's, as of right now, he'd be in my lineup, specifically since it's against the Thunder, who don't defend well. And I think that the pace will be decent enough because both teams are so inefficient defensively that I think Ingram could have one of his ceiling style games. Other guys, if you want to go a little bit cheaper, Josh Hart at 6'3", Herbert Jones at 4'3", and then you always can go Joe Val at 8'7". Certainly not going to play Ingram and Joe Val, but one of the two options I think is very much in play. On the Thunder side, without Dort out there, he, even though he doesn't score a lot, he does soak up some usage. A lot of that'll go back to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's playable at 8'8". And also everybody likes to take a shot at trying to catch one of Josh Giddey's triple-double style games at 6'7". Always a good option as well. The rest of the bench there and everybody else starting, I just don't think there's strong enough players on a game of this a slate of this magnitude with 11 games. Both of those teams are also on an island. One of these teams on the next 8 o'clock game, though, is not. Indiana's on the first night of a back-to-back. They're playing the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee's only favored by 1. It's a 217.5 total. And it's 108.25 for Indiana, 109.25 for the Milwaukee Bucks. We know the reason why this spread is low, because some guy by the name of Giannis is not playing, and his buddy Chris Middleton is questionable. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. So Middleton, questionable. Giannis, Cousins, DiVincenzo, Lopez, Matthews, and Ojale all out for Milwaukee. For Indiana, the other Jay Holiday, that being his brother Justin Holiday, is questionable, and McConnell and Warren remain out. So this game really is intriguing. Indiana's 12-17, Milwaukee 18-11. But the news is going to be very paramount here. You've got pace of 22 for Indiana, but pace up to 8 for Milwaukee. So good pace-up game for the Pacers. Both teams are decent defensively, though. Indiana 12, Milwaukee 9. So it's not a runaway game by any stretch. But it's hard not to like Drew Holiday if both Middleton and Giannis are out. I think at 7.5, which is a pretty cheap price for him, I think he's just a plug and play if both guys sit. I like him even if Middleton plays, but I think Holiday gets some good attention here. Now, I don't know how big of a ceiling game it'll be for him with Malcolm Brogdon defense, but I do think it's necessary because of usage and minutes played in a game that they're going to want to win at home that has a 1-point spread. You can certainly scrape for some value here. Grayson Allen at 4, Pat Connaughton at 5. Bobby Portis has drifted a little down to 7-1. And then you're going to get a bunch of guys off the bench. You're probably going to get some Hill, maybe some Hood, certainly some Noir, a little bit, but nobody that you really have to dig into here. I think the focus needs to be on Holiday if Middleton plays, and then your second options of Connaughton and Portis. On the Indiana side, you've got Brogdon at 7.7, fair price for him. Duarte at 4.8, I'm sorry, in play. Karis LeVert's up to 6.5, but a playable commodity. And the two bigs. I mean, you got to look at the entire starting five here as possible plays. Not the bench, but the five main guys. Sabonis is 9.5, so that's a big chunk to bite off. Turner's at 6.2. So we'll see how this rolls. Coach Carlisle's still out with COVID, so they're getting the backup coaches, but Carlisle's still pulling the levers. The rotations haven't changed much, and they're still looking to probably trade, I believe, LeVert and Turner. So there's some turmoil there, but I think you've got, the fact that it's a pace-up game for the Pacers. I definitely want to have some exposure there. All right, let's move on to an 8:30 game. It's the only 8:30 game on the slate, and it also has to be the biggest number on the slate. So how much do you like this game is a big question on how you're going to stack up your lineup. It seems like Charlotte games are now becoming the norm of the highest total of the slate. We had a while last year that the Nets were like that, and it sort of rotated around. But now it's the Hornets. The Hornets are the worst defensive team in the league, and it's showing in Vegas. 228.5 is the total. Again, you don't see too many games 230 or close to it in this day and age. Spurs are favored, by the way, by 3.5. 112.5 implied for Charlotte. Nice 116 for the Spurs. And, you've got both teams on an island game. You've got some great pace here. Charlotte 4th and San Antonio 6th. And then you have, again, terrible defense from the Hornets side. They're dead last. Spurs in the middle of the pack at 15th. As far as injuries go in this game, the 15 and 14 Hornets have questionable tag on Plumlee. Mr. Mason Plumlee possibly could play, but Ball and Smith are out. For the Spurs, all they're listing as out is Zach Collins. So, you've got a lot of the regulars in this game. That's helping, I think, the total as well. Possibilities, Terry Rozier at 7.3 and his counterpart on the other side, DeJounte Murray at 10.3. I think they're both going to get play. I'm probably not going to go to either spot because I think they defend each other. And I think that I respect that defense, and their pricing's a little bit off for me. Cody Martin at 6.4, I think is a better play. That's somebody I'm looking at. Gordon Hayward at 7.4 in play, and Miles Bridges at 8.1. I love that play. Kelly Oubre's been smashing slate after slate. He may go back to the bench and come off as the sixth man, or may start. We have to see what that lineup's going to be. But at 8.2, even if he loses a sliver of time or a few rotations, that's a little bit expensive for me. On the Spurs side, you've got Pop, so you always have to fear some stuff. But Jakob Poeltl, this looks like a game that he could do some damage. He's only 7K, good option at center. You have Keldon Johnson, who was out for a bit, coming back. Unless we hear there's some limitations at 5'6", You can push the button there. Derek White, I never play. I played him the other night, and he's 7-2 now, but he did get a 60 burger for me. So a guy that I've not really played much, I certainly like now, is on my good side. So there are a lot of good plays here, but I know this sounds strange, and you're thinking, Coach, have you lost your mind? But I'm not going to have a ton of exposure to this game. I don't always love the highest total game on the board. And this is one of those cases, and it is high. 228.5 is a lot. I just see, a lot of bench being used on both sides. I think Oubre, Washington, McDaniels, Booknight, Thor, maybe even Nick Richards, or Kai Jones if Plumlee sits. That's a lot of guys to play. Plus they get Rozier back in that rotation, and he had been out. So it's going to get spread around a bit. Same thing with the Spurs, Walker, Vassell, maybe some Trey Jones, Eubanks, Forbes, little Bates, Diop, or Young. I mean, there's depth, and these guys aren't out unless something changes. So, this will be the most played game. And I think one of our big edges is we'll have some exposure here, but not nearly as much. We are going to be underweight to this game on Coach Talk today. So we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. It's not going to be one of those games I think it's going to be low scoring. It's just I think it's going to be spread around enough that if you miss some of the plays here that are traps where you're going to get lower numbers, I think it can make a massive difference. So, hey, we're not chalk players here at Coach Talk. We don't just play strictly with the numbers say. We hand build everything. We use all the analytics. We use all the optimizers. We do everything everybody else does, but we don't just dump it in and accept it. We take it, we maneuver it, we look at it, we apply our coaching knowledge and what's gone on to create and hand build a couple lineups that we think can take some stuff down. So this is one of those cases where it really shows that. All right, next game is a 9 p.m. game. It's the only 9 o'clock game, and then we have 3 late games. So that's going to be fun, all at 10 o'clock. So we'll give you a lot of late swap possibilities. All right, the 9 o'clock game is Minnesota and Denver. Denver by 5. It's 217.5. The implied for Minnesota, 106.25. For Denver is 111.25. As far as this game, Minnesota's 12-15. Denver's 14-13. D'Angelo Russell, only one listed on the injury report for Minnesota. He's questionable. And then you have probable for Will Barton and Aaron Gordon. So that we're going to count them in. Austin Rivers, who's somewhat been out of the rotation anyway, is questionable. But we do know for sure that JaMychal Green and Jamal Murray are out. As far as looking at how these teams run, Minnesota is 5th in pace, so big pace up game for Denver. Denver 3rd slowest at 28th in the league. So in vice versa mode here, Minnesota big pace down. Defensively, Minnesota 13th, Denver 18th. So really combined for somewhat middle of the road. Who are the plays here? Well, we need to know again on D'Angelo Russell. If he plays without limitations at 8-4, you can look at him. If he sits, I think it brings up Anthony Edwards at 8-3 as a very viable play. You've got Jared Vanderbilt, who's thrown some nice games together as an option at 5-5. Cat, a little pricey for me at 10-2. But speaking of pricey, we've got the Joker at 12-2. Huge, chunk to bite off on an 11-game slate, but there are massive amounts of value. So you can play the Joker at 12-2 and just figure it out from there. Not leaning that way, believe it or not. And I know, it makes sense too, because it's a massive pace-up game. Cat's not a good defender, and the spread's fairly close. I mean, I'm on the fence. I'll certainly have the Joker rostered somewhere, whether it's in my GPP or I can, really feel comfortable with putting him in my cash. I think he's a terrific play, one of the better plays on the slate. It's just a matter of, reward versus how much you're spending for him, because, when you spend 12.2 for a guy and you're talking, you don't get 65 to 70, you're going to be disappointed. That's pretty big. So you got to think about that a little bit. You can go on the cheaper side with any of the guys, really. Monte Morris at 5.8, Barton 6.8, Gordon 6.2, or Jeff Green at 4.4. All have good potential here in a pace-up game to get to their number. Really, that's how I see this game rolling. I'd like some exposure. The Russell news is important. And then just, ultimately making that decision on the Joker is going to be really slate shifting. All right, 3 10 o'clock games. Maybe it's the night we do an after-hours slate for our members. So remind me in Discord, and we'll put some after-hours lineups together for you later this evening. Not often get 3 10 o'clock games lately. So, and they're interesting games too. They all have, playable guys. So the first one is Washington and Sacramento, 10 o'clock. Sacramento by 1, a nice 225.5 total. 112.25 implied for Washington. 113.25 implied for Sacramento. It is the first night of a back-to-back for Washington. So will that affect things? That's what we have to see lineup-wise. There's no news early on that. So that's something that we will follow. Washington comes in at 15-13. Sacramento at 11-17. Kyle Kuzma questionable for Washington. Important news that we need to know. Bryant and Hashimura remain out. And then for Sacramento, Richaun Holmes is unlikely to play, doubtful. So we will count him out unless we hear something different. Pace-wise, Washington only 25th in the league. A lot different than they played last year. Real ball control. That's why you very rarely see any ceiling games anymore from Bradley Beal. Last year, they were trying to outscore everybody, and they'd have some big numbers. And Beal was really going into the 60s, 70s on a regular basis. But with the pace they're playing and defense that they're playing, he hasn't gotten there. Now you just have to pick his spots. This could be one of them. Where he really could get it done. And he is definitely on my radar and hasn't been most of the year. Sacramento's third in the league in pace. So that's a big reason why I'm considering Beal and a couple other possibilities with the Wizards because of that big pace up. And also Sacramento doesn't defend. They're 26th. Since Gentry took over, they won some games. They're playing harder, but they're scoring more. And their defense isn't as good. That's Gentry's MO, wherever he coaches. So that makes the Sacramento games more interesting, and certainly the Washington side of the ball. Other than Beal, I think you can consider a cheap Dinwiddie at 5.5. Kuzma, if he plays without restrictions, at 5.9. Just haven't seen the Gafford-Harrell thing paying off much with that split, even though they're both around 5K. On the Sacramento side, yes, Washington plays decent defense and doesn't play at a great pace, but Washington's defense has been plummeting. I mean, they have dropped a dozen spots in the last 3 weeks. So, it does bring Sacramento's players into consideration here. Washington's 19th, Sacramento 26th, by the way, defensively. Fox at 8K, playable. Halliburton at 6K, playable. Barnes, we'll see. He's not quite back to himself since he sat, but at 5.6, you can look at it. After that, it becomes a little risky. Metu, Len, Hield, Mitchell, and Davis, and Bagley and Thompson. That's the big group, and they're getting minutes. All of those guys, those 8 guys are getting minutes. 7 guys. But for me, out of that group, I think Bagley has the most upside at 4.5. Terrence Davis at 4. But, now that he's not starting, more than likely, certainly a big step back. So some GPP plays from those guys, but not in cash games, in my opinion. Way too risky on a slate that has so many great options and values. All right, 2 games remaining. Again, these last 3 stretch after our slate. Memphis and Portland. Portland by 1. 219.5 total. It is 109.25 implied for Memphis, 110.25 for the Portland Trailblazers. Coming into this game, we've got Memphis at 17-11, Portland just the opposite at 11-17. Guys that are out here, nobody questionable, so it's nice that we know this ahead of time. Brandon Clark, we have Sam Merrill, Ja Morant, Zaire Williams are the four out there for Memphis. CJ McCollum and Cody Zeller out for Portland. As far as the statistical analysis here, when you look at pace of play, you've got Memphis 11th, Portland only 26th, which is very odd when you have all those guards that can run, but they're not playing fast under new coach Chauncey Billups. Defensively, nothing to write home about. Memphis 17th. They haven't quite got over the hump yet, but they did miss some key players like Dillon Brooks in that defense for a lot of the season, so that should improve. Portland still can't defend. They couldn't defend the last couple of years, and they still can't. They're 27th, and now they have to play probably a fairly long period of time without CJ. Looking at the prices here, you've got Desmond Bane, who's been so steady, really improved player at 6'3", Dillon Brooks at 6'4", Triple J, if you trust him to stay out of foul trouble, at 7'2", and a super cheap 5K Steven Adams, who has, at times really gone 7-8x. At times he gets low total, so a lot of risk there, but there is definitely some reward. DeAnthony Melton, Kyle Anderson are capable of having big games for them off the bench. Portland, Dame at 9.9, very expensive. He hasn't been the same Dame this year as he's been in the past, but if he starts heating up without CJ, his usage is through the roof. I think he's a nice play tonight. It's just, if in that stars and scrubs, he could be one of your pay-up guys. I think it makes sense. The big thing here, though, is it's the second night of a back-to-back for Portland. It's the only team that played yesterday that plays tonight. So how is that going to affect their rotation? Do they sit anybody? That's what we need to see. So we're going to keep a close eye on this one. If you play a guy like Lillard, though, and you can put him in a spot where you can pivot him out easy, do that, so that, have a plan in mind going into these late games. Norman Powell's been steady at 6'5". He's had some real nice games. Nurkic at 7'8", also definitely interesting to me. Simons maybe at 5'4", although that price has come up, an outside consideration. But I want to make sure he's completely healthy. So there's a few plays here in this game. Not my favorite game on the slate, but I think, a one-off on each side makes perfect sense. All right, game 11. It's the last game on the slate, and it's an interesting one. Utah Jazz and the LA Clippers. The Clippers have a 103.5 implied. Utah has a 112 implied. Utah's favored by 8.5. It's a 215 over-under with an island game for both teams. Coming into the game, the Clippers are 16-12. Utah's 19-7. Important news here in this game, and again, it creates this, do you roster these guys and have them in a spot where you can pivot them? And that's Paul George. Paul George and Nick Batum, both questionable, and it changes everything in this game, both defensively for the Clippers and certainly usage-wise for the Clippers. Also, Ibaka, Leonard, Preston out for the Clippers. Utah, on the other hand, Azubuike and Butler, that's Jared Butler, are the two guys that are out for Utah. They've stayed pretty darn healthy throughout the year. Offensively, pace-wise, Clippers are 12th and Utah 16th. So even though everybody thinks, it's the Clippers and Jazz, slow, tough defensive teams. Yeah, they're great defensively, but they don't play slow. They're middle of the pack or better, 12th and 16th. So they're right there. Defensively, though, you've got the two best matched up defenses on the slate. They're 4th and 5th, respectively. So, definitely not a stack game in that sense. But there are some solid plays. Reggie Jackson, 6'8", Terrence Mann at 5'3", and Marcus Morris at 5'4". Those three jump up if George sits. And then you have a possibility of a Luke Kennard at 5'2" as well. Or if, GPP-wise, Brandon Boston at 3K flat min. If George plays, it does shuffle the deck there. George becomes the best play, and it really lessens some of the flavor for some of these bench guys. On the Utah side, Conley at 5'7", he's had, a lower ceiling this year, haven't gone there. Certainly Mitchell, at any game, any time, he can go off at 9-1. I like him a lot more if George sits, because George would guard him. But if he sits, Mitchell, it's going to be a tough matchup for them, because if they put Kennard in, he can't defend. So then you got to shuffle the deck around and try to find somebody that can stop him, or bring an athletic guy in like a Boston, or move somebody to try to bully him, like a Morris, or maybe even Terrence Mann, even though, he may get the assignment there. So the bottom line is Mitchell becomes a much better play for me if Paul George is out. After that, you can go on the cheap with Bogdanovich or O'Neal or Clarkson. They're all in that 4 to 5 range. Very inconsistent with who's stepping up to get it done. They really do it by committee quite a bit. Gobert's a fine play at center, though. He's a flat 9K, which is a little expensive, but he's going to get a lot of rebounds in this game, and he makes sense in a line, in a group of centers where there's a lot of good centers, but I think he's an option that if you want to have a late, ace in the hole, he could get you, 14 points, 15 rebounds, 5 blocks kind of game. So I do like him here. Just don't know if I want to use that last pay up spot for 9K Gobert. All right, my friends, that is 11 games. We went through all of them. My recommendation is get those, pick the contests you want, get those locked in, go through the podcast, set up your initial lineups, and get those in place. That makes it so much easier when the time comes for lock. Then join us in Discord. You can jump on at dfscoachtalk.com. And again, take any of our great deals, especially our 12 days of Christmas, which is $12 for 12 days. You can't beat it. So if you sign up today, we'll get you in Discord. You'll be able to check everything out this afternoon. And then, follow it through in Discord with us. And then that last hour before lock, I know all of us have been feeling it. We had Omaha Joe Stanton, who, hats off, man. I got to take my hat off to you. You did a great job on Sunday. Appreciate you filling in as I was traveling. But he experienced some late changes in NBA as the lock comes about, and it is stressful. And of course, we had Saturday, we had our man Crash Davis do a great job, but he had those late, last minute changes. Andrew yesterday had to deal with them. And, I know what that feeling is basically 6 days a week, is you get all that news, all that stuff moving, and then boom, 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 the last 30, 40 minutes or less. Lately, it's been the last 15 minutes. There's major changes that happen, but we're on it. We don't have to dump everything back into an optimizer, spread everything out with all these 150 lineups, figure all that back out when there's a change and it screws up everything. We sort of have already figured out, who's in, who are our first guys in or out. And if there's a change, how's that pivot going to take place? We'll get that on our clipboard for DraftKings. We'll make those changes on FanDuel and Yahoo, and we'll have them to you in time for lock. So, yeah, it was great early on when we could always post everything 25, 30 minutes ahead and everybody's comfortable. But, now it's 10, 15 minutes ahead. Still gives you plenty of time. And if you follow the process and aren't trying to buy into the contest, initially put your lineup in and do all that at the last minute, if you get it set and listen to the podcast, you'll know sort of a core group of guys we're going to play anyway. And then it's not as stressful if we get those last minute changes. So just wanted to mention that to our members because I know sometimes it's a scramble at the end, but I love it. I mean, I know people complain about it. I think it gives us an edge. The normal people out there don't have a ton of time to prepare for these late night swaps and everything that goes on. We do. We're setting this up throughout the day. We're watching it and making the moves as they happen right in our Discord. So the more changes, the more stuff. I know it's tough, but it's the better for us here at Coach Talk. It gives us a bigger edge, and we're gonna show a lot more winners that way. So fantastic time here. Enjoyed it. Love meeting with everybody. This midweek Wednesday slate is always really hot, so it's going to be a fun night tonight. So enjoy it. If you have any questions, let us know. You can reach us on Twitter at DFS CoachTalk. If you want to leave a question right in YouTube, we'll answer it there as well. So appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy this slate, and we'll be back again tomorrow as we look to crush it in NBA DFS.